In Seoul, power doesn't announce itself. It moves through boardrooms at midnight, through private elevators that require 2 key codes, through deals closed in languages most will never speak. Seo Junhyuk built an empire on infrastructure and defense technology. At 43, he was untouchable. Or so he believed. This is the story of a man who confused silence for submission. And the woman who let him. The rain came down hard over Gangnam, turning the neon into liquid color against the glass. Seo Junhyuk sat in a private room on the 42nd floor of the Intercontinental, a tumbler of 18-year whiskey untouched on the table beside him. The woman across from him laughed at something he hadn't meant to be funny. He smiled anyway. This was a familiar rhythm. Late meetings that weren't meetings. Dinners that lasted until the restaurants dimmed their lights. Conversations that required privacy, discretion, and a credit card that never printed a name. He had done this before. Many times. The city below moved without him, taxis cutting through rain, late-night deliveries stacked outside convenience stores, couples under umbrellas pretending the weather was romantic. None of it mattered. Inside this room, time bent around him. Consequences lived elsewhere, in contracts, in court filings, in the marriages of weaker men. Not his. "You're distracted," the woman said, leaning forward. He wasn't. But he let her believe it. "Work," he said simply. She nodded, understanding without needing details. That was the beauty of arrangements like this. No questions. No expectations. Just presence, purchased and fleeting. His phone buzzed twice on the table. He glanced at it. A message from his assistant, board prep complete. Morning brief at 9 a.m. Another from his wife, left dinner in the fridge. He didn't reply to either. The rain intensified, drumming against the floor-to-ceiling windows. Somewhere far below, the Han River reflected nothing but darkness. Seo Junhyuk refilled his glass, feeling the weight of success settle around him like armor. He had built this life carefully. Every decision is calculated. Every risk managed. Marriage was no different. Ji-yeon was perfect for what he needed, educated, composed, uninterested in his schedule. She never waited up. Never checked receipts. Never asked where he had been. That, he believed, was respect. The clock on the wall ticked past 3 a.m. "I should go," he said, standing. The woman didn't protest. She never did. He adjusted his cufflinks, straightened his jacket, and walked toward the door without looking back. By the time he reached the elevator, she would already be a memory he wouldn't bother keeping. The lobby was empty except for the night staff who knew better than to make eye contact. His driver waited outside, engine running, door already open. Seo Junhyuk slid into the back seat, the leather cool against his skin. The rain blurred the city into abstraction as they pulled away from the hotel. He checked his phone again. No new messages. Good. He leaned back, closing his eyes, letting the hum of the engine lull him into a space between wakefulness and sleep. By the time they reached Cheongdam-dong, the rain had stopped. The streets were empty. Clean. Waiting. He stepped out of the car, the night air sharp and cold. Above him, the penthouse windows reflected nothing. He walked toward the entrance, keys in hand, convinced of only one thing. The night was over. It wasn't. The underground garage opened automatically as his car descended into the building. Seo Junhyuk stepped out, his footsteps echoing against concrete walls that had absorbed the sound of his return 1,000 times before. The elevator required a fingerprint. Then a code. Then a final confirmation that took 3 seconds longer than usual. He didn't notice. When the doors opened into his penthouse, the first thing he felt was the wrong temperature. Not cold. Not warm. Neutral. Like a space that had stopped being lived in. Ji-yeon. His voice carried through the open floor plan, bouncing off marble and glass, finding no one. The lights were on, but dimmed to their automatic setting. The kind that activated when motion sensors detected emptiness. He set his keys on the console table near the entrance, the metallic clink louder than it should have been. The living room stretched before him, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Han River, furniture arranged with the precision his wife had always insisted upon. But something was missing. He couldn't name it yet. The kitchen island was bare. No teapot. No morning. No neatly folded cloth napkin beside a single plate. Ji-Yun woke early. Always. She moved through the apartment like a presence that required no announcement, tea brewed before he asked, breakfast prepared whether he ate it or not, routines that marked her existence without demanding his attention. This morning, there was none of that. Only silence. He walked further inside, his polished shoes making soft sounds against the heated floor. The air was too clean. No lingering scent of ginseng tea. No faint aroma of skincare products from the bathroom. No subtle proof that another human being shared this space. Ji-Yun, he called again, quieter this time. Nothing. He moved toward the bedroom, expecting to find her asleep, or perhaps already dressed and reading in the study as she sometimes did when he came home late. The bedroom door was open. The bed was made. Perfectly. Untouched. His side still had the faint impression of where he'd last slept, 2 nights ago, before the business trip to Busan. Her side was smooth. Empty. He stood in the doorway, unease creeping into his chest. Then he saw it. On the marble counter in the kitchen, alone and centered. A black envelope. Thick. Heavy. Sealed with dark red wax. His name was written across the front in precise handwriting. Not hers. Someone else's. Seo Junhyuk walked toward it slowly, his breath shallow. The envelope sat there, waiting, as if it had been placed with ceremony. He reached for it. Stopped. His hand hovered above the paper, fingers trembling in a way he didn't recognize. Outside, the city began to wake. The first light of dawn touched the river, turning the water from black to gray. Inside, the silence pressed down harder. He touched the envelope. But didn't open it yet. Seo Junhyuk broke the wax seal. The sound was sharper than he expected, a clean snap that felt final. Inside were documents. Legal weight. Professional formatting. The kind of paper that costs more per page than most people earn in a day. He pulled them out, his hands steadier now, convincing himself this was a misunderstanding. Then he read the first line. Petition for divorce, filed with the Seoul Central District Court. His brain refused the information. He read it again. Petitioner, Han Ji-Yun respondent, Seo Junhyuk filing date, January 14, 2026, 2:47 a.m. 2:47 a.m. He had still been at the hotel. Still laughing. Still drinking. Still believing his life was under control. While his wife was filing dissolution papers in the middle of the night. Seo Junhyuk set the documents on the counter, his mind racing through possibilities. A threat. A negotiation tactic. Some kind of leverage play he hadn't anticipated. Ji-Yun didn't do impulsive things. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't create scenes. This had to be a strategy. Except the language on the page wasn't strategic. It was surgical. No emotional preamble. No accusations written in anger. Just clean, legal severance. Irreconcilable differences. Breakdown of marital trust. Grounds established pursuant to Family Litigation Act Article 840. He flipped to the second page. A list. Properties. Accounts. Assets acquired during marriage. Everything was catalogued with dates, values, and legal classifications he barely understood. And then, at the bottom, a single line that made his chest tighten. Evidence submitted under separate seal. Evidence. Not claims. Not allegations. Evidence. Seo Junhyuk moved faster now, his controlled composure cracking. He walked through the apartment, eyes scanning for something out of place, something that would explain this. The living room looked the same. Almost. He stopped. The painting that had hung above the sofa, abstract, expensive, something Ji-Yun said came from her family, was gone. The wall was bare except for a small rectangular shadow where it had been. He moved to the shelves. 3 sculptures were missing. Small ones. Pieces he had never looked at closely but knew had always been there. In the study, her desk was empty. No laptop. No notebooks. No pens were arranged in the ceramic holder she'd brought from her office years ago. Just wood. Polished and abandoned. He walked to the bedroom closet, pulling the door open. His side was untouched. Suits hung in perfect rows. Shirts are organized by color. Shoes lined up beneath. Her side was erased. Not emptied in haste. Not thrown into boxes and dragged away. Removed. Every hanger bare. Every shelf cleared. Every drawer is hollow. Seo Junhyuk stood there, staring into the space, his reflection distorted in the mirrored closet door. She hadn't left in anger. She had left with precision. He turned, scanning the bedroom again, and that's when he saw it. On the nightstand. Her side. A wedding ring. Not thrown. Not discarded. Placed. Centered perfectly on the dark wood surface, catching the early light from the window. Returned. He picked it up, the metal cold against his palm. For the first time in years, Seo Junhyuk felt something he didn't have a name for. Not fear. Not yet. But the edge of it. He looked back at the envelope on the counter. There was more inside. He knew it. And he wasn't ready to see it. Seo Junhyuk moved through the penthouse like a man searching for proof of his own memory. The coffee table in the living room, there had been a ceramic vase there. Small, understated, filled with branches she replaced every week. Gone. The bookshelf near the window, her collection of art theory texts, stacked vertically between marble bookends. Gone. Even the throw blanket she kept folded over the armchair, the one she used when reading late at night while he worked in the study. Gone. He opened the drawer beneath the media console. Her chargers. Her headphones. The remote control was always misplaced. Empty. Every trace of her daily existence had been systematically removed. But his world remained untouched. His whiskey collection. His golf clubs are in the hallway closet. His framed awards are on the wall. She had taken nothing of his. Only herself. Seo Junhyuk returned to the bedroom, standing in the doorway as if entering it again might change what he'd already seen. The wedding ring still sat on the nightstand. He walked to her dresser, pulling open the top drawer. Nothing. The second drawer. The third. All empty. Not a receipt. Not a forgotten earring. Not a single scrap of paper left behind. He moved to the bathroom. Her side of the counter was bare. No skincare bottles. No makeup. No hair ties looped around the faucet. The cabinet above the sink held nothing but his cologne and shaving kit. It was as if she had never lived here. Except for the ring. That had been left on purpose. He picked it up again, turning it over in his fingers, reading the inscription inside that he had chosen years ago. Forever. The irony wasn't lost on him. Seo Junhyuk sat on the edge of the bed, the divorce papers still waiting in the kitchen, the silence of the apartment pressing in from all sides. How long had she been planning this? The question looped through his mind, relentless. You don't file divorce papers at 2:47 a.m. on impulse. You don't empty an entire life from a shared home overnight without preparation. You don't leave a wedding ring as a symbol unless you've already decided what it means. She had known. 4 weeks. Maybe months. And she had said nothing. No arguments. No coldness. No warnings. Just this. Clean. Complete. Irreversible. He stood, pacing toward the window. The city below was waking fully now. Traffic is building on the bridges. Joggers along the river path. The machinery of Seoul is turning without pause. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out. A message from his vice chairman, tried calling. Need to speak urgently. Another from his lawyer, received notification. Do not speak to anyone until we talk. Seo Junhyuk stared at the messages, his pulse quickening. Notification. What notification? He walked back to the kitchen, to the black envelope, and reached inside. There was more. A second set of documents, clipped together. Thicker than the first. He pulled them out slowly. The header made his blood stop. Appendix A, documented evidence of marital misconduct. And beneath it, a single line in smaller text. Compiled by private investigation, submitted pursuant to Civil Act Article 806. He turned the page. And saw the first photograph. The photograph was date-stamped. November 18, 2025. 9:42 p.m. A restaurant in Hanam-dong. One he recognized immediately. Private dining rooms. Reservation only. The kind of place where discretion was guaranteed, and cameras were forbidden. Except someone had taken this picture. And it was clear. Seo Junhyuk is entering through the side entrance with a woman beside him. Not Ji-yeon. Her face blurred for privacy. He was not. He flipped to the next page. Another photograph. December 3, 2025. 11:14 p.m. The lobby of the Intercontinental. Different woman. Same posture. Same man. Another page. August 22, 2025. 1:33 a.m. A hotel in Jamsil. Exiting together. Rain is visible in the frame. He kept flipping. January 7, 2026. February 14, 2025. October 9, 2025. Restaurants. Hotels. Private rooms booked under aliases he had used for years. Not blurry paparazzi shots. Not guesses. Professional surveillance. Time-stamped. Geotagged. Cross-referenced with credit card transactions listed in an appendix at the back. Seo Junhyuk set the documents down, his hands shaking now. This wasn't anger. This was preparation. Someone had been watching him. 4 months. Possibly longer. And Ji-yeon had commissioned it. Or worse, she had done it herself. He forced himself to keep reading. The next section wasn't photographs. It was receipts. Hotel rooms charged to his corporate card. Dinners labeled as client development. Luxury purchases are categorized as business gifts. Every single one traced. Verified. Categorized. Dates matched to his calendar. Locations confirmed through GPS metadata. Nothing was missing. Nothing was assumed. This was evidence that would survive a courtroom. He turned to the final page of the appendix, and his stomach dropped. A list of names. Women. Not full names. Just first names and dates of contact. Some he remembered. Some he didn't. The list went back 3 years. Seo Junhyuk stood, walking to the window, needing air even though the glass didn't open. His reflection stared back at him, expensive suit, perfect hair, a man who still looked like he controlled everything. But the apartment around him told a different story. His wife hadn't confronted him. She had documented him. She hadn't cried or screamed or threatened. She had gathered proof. And now, at 6:47 a.m. on a Wednesday, that proof sat on his kitchen counter in a black envelope with red wax, submitted to a court before he even knew he was being charged. His phone buzzed again. This time, a call. His lawyer. He answered. "Don't say anything," the voice on the other end said immediately. "Not to me. Not to anyone. Just listen." CO Jun-hyuk said nothing. There was an emergency board session at 3 a.m. Legal representatives showed up with your wife's filing and additional documentation. "I don't know what's in it yet, but they've requested a freeze on certain asset transfers pending review." "What representatives?" CO Jun-hyuk managed. "The kind you hire when you're not playing." The line went quiet for a moment. "Jun-hyuk, whatever you think this is, it's bigger. Your wife didn't just file for divorce." "Then what did she file?" Another pause. "I'll know in an hour. Don't leave the city. Don't move money. Don't call anyone else." The call ended. CO Jun-hyuk stood there, phone in hand, staring at the documents spread across the counter. And then he saw it. Clipped to the back of the evidence file. A single sheet. Different paper. Heavier stock. He pulled it free. It was a clause. From a contract he had signed years ago and never read closely. A prenuptial agreement. And the section highlighted in yellow made his vision blur. Section 7.3, Infidelity Clause and Intellectual Property Redistribution. CO Jun-hyuk read the clause 3 times. Each time, the words remained the same. In the event of proven marital misconduct by either party, all jointly developed intellectual property, including but not limited to patents, proprietary algorithms, and technology frameworks co-funded or co-developed during the marriage, shall transfer to the non-offending party. He didn't remember this. He had signed the prenup in his lawyer's office 6 years ago, weeks before the wedding. A formality. Standard protection for wealthy marriages. His attorney had summarized it in 2 sentences: "You keep yours, she keeps hers, everything's clean." He had initialed every page without reading. And now, standing in his empty penthouse, he realized what he'd missed. Jointly developed intellectual property. Ji-yun had no role in his company. No operational authority. No engineering background. She was an art history professor. She lectured on cultural preservation and digital archiving. What intellectual property could she possibly claim? He grabbed his phone, dialing his vice chairman. This time, the call connected. Jun-hyuk. The voice was tight. Controlled. The kind of tone people used when delivering bad news to powerful men. What the hell happened at 3 a.m.? A long exhale on the other end. Your wife's legal team presented documentation to the board. Emergency session. I was told to attend but not to speak. Documentation of what? Investment records. Funding agreements. Early stage development contracts. CO Jun-hyuk's grip tightened on the phone. Explain. The AI infrastructure platform we launched in 2021, the one that secured our defense contracts, it turns out initial R&D was partially funded by a third-party investment group. I know that. We disclosed it in the shareholder reports. Yes. But we never disclosed who controlled that investment group. Silence. Your wife, Jun-hyuk. Or rather, a trust in her name. She held a silent stake in the funding entity that bankrolled your expansion. The room tilted. That's impossible. The documentation is airtight. Corporate filings from the Cayman Islands. Signature authorization from 2020. She was listed as a beneficial owner through a family trust. Seo Junhyuk sank onto the sofa, his mind racing. She never mentioned. She wasn't required to. The structure was legal. Opaque, but legal. Why would she fund my company without telling me? I don't think she funded it for you. The silence stretched. The board wants an emergency audit. They're questioning whether any operational decisions were influenced by undisclosed conflicts of interest. That's insane. She had no influence. She didn't even attend company events. Junhyuk. The vice chairman's voice softened. She didn't need to attend. She just needed to watch. The call ended. Seo Junhyuk sat in the pale morning light, staring at the prenup clause still clutched in his hand. Jointly developed intellectual property. Not developed by him alone. Developed with funding she controlled. Which meant, legally, she had been a co-developer all along. And if the infidelity clause is activated. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Temporary suspension of executive authority. Board Resolution 2026-003. Effective immediately. He read it twice. Suspended. Not investigated. Not questioned. Suspended. His access to corporate systems. His signing authority. His ability to make decisions on behalf of the company he had built. Gone. Pending investigation into potential misuse of resources and breach of fiduciary duty. Seo Junhyuk stood, pacing, his breath shallow. This wasn't just a divorce. This was dismantlement. He pulled up his email, scrolling through the overnight messages he'd ignored. Board resolutions. Access revocations. Legal holds on internal communications. And buried near the bottom, a single email from an address he didn't recognize. The subject line read, Shareholder Disclosure, Han Ji-yun. He opened it. And everything he thought he knew about his marriage was shattered. The email contained a single attachment. A corporate filing. Dated 2019. 1 year before he met Ji-yun. Seo Junhyuk opened it, his hands unsteady. Beneficial Ownership Registry, Artemis Capital Holdings Registered Entity, Cayman Islands Primary Stakeholder, Han Ji-yun Secondary Authorization, Han Tae-jun. Han Tae-jun. The name hit him like cold water. He knew that name. Everyone in Korean finance knew that name. Former Vice Minister of Economic Strategy. Current chairman of one of the largest sovereign investment advisory boards in Asia. A man whose influence shaped billions in capital flows across 3 continents. Ji-yun's father. Except she had told him her father was a retired university professor. Seo Junhyuk scrolled further. Another document. Another entity. Minerva Strategic Ventures, established 2018. Focus, Technology Infrastructure, Defense Applications, AI Integration Board Members, redacted, Beneficial Owner, Han Ji-yun, via Family Trust. His vision blurred. She hadn't been a professor's daughter watching from the sidelines. She had been an investor. A stakeholder. A silent architect in the very industry he thought he dominated. And she had married him anyway. He opened the next file. A timeline. 2019, Artemis Capital Holdings invests 15 billion Korean wons in early-stage defense tech startups. 2020, Seo Junhyuk's company receives bridge funding from an unnamed consortium. 2021, Han Ji-yun and Seo Junhyuk marry. 2022, major AI infrastructure platform launches. Defense contracts secured. 2023 to 2025, company valuation triples. 2026, divorce filed. Infidelity clause triggered. Seo Junhyuk set the phone down. The marriage wasn't love. It was an observation. She had been inside his life from the beginning, not as a partner, but as an auditor. She had watched him build. Watched him spend. Watched him cheat. And she had waited. He stood, walking to the window, the city spreading below him in geometric indifference. How long had she known? Every affair. Every late night. Every lie. Had she known from the first one? Or had she simply expected it? His phone rang. A number he didn't recognize. He answered without thinking. Mr. CEO. A woman's voice. Professional. Detached. This is attorney Kong Minyoung from Jisu and Partners. I represent Han Ji-yun. He said nothing. I'm calling to inform you that a forensic accounting review has been submitted to the Seoul Central Prosecutor's Office. The review identifies irregular transactions totaling 2.3 billion Korean wons over 3 years. His throat tightened. What transactions? Corporate funds allocated to personal expenditures. Hotel stays, luxury goods, and cash withdrawals flagged as inconsistent with legitimate business activity. That's absurd. Every expense was approved. Approved by you. Using your executive authority. Which is why the prosecutor's office is treating this as potential embezzlement. The word landed like a sentence. I never embezzled anything. That will be for the investigation to determine. In the meantime, a court order has been issued freezing your personal accounts pending resolution. You can't do that. We didn't. The court did. Based on evidence submitted this morning. CEO Jun Hyuk's pulse hammered in his ears. Let me speak to Ji-yun. Ms. Han has no interest in direct communication. All matters will be handled through legal counsel. She can't just. Mr. CEO, your wife is not acting out of emotion. She's acting within the law. I suggest you secure representation immediately. The line went dead. CEO Jun Hyuk stood there, phone still pressed to his ear, the silence of the penthouse swallowing him whole. He had thought he was powerful. He had thought he was untouchable. But the woman he had underestimated for 6 years had just rewritten the rules. And he was only beginning to understand how long she'd been playing. CEO Jun Hyuk opened his banking app. The screen loaded. Then froze. Account access restricted. Contact your financial institution. He tried the corporate card. Transaction declined. The investment account. Temporary hold, pending legal review. Every avenue. Every backup. Every line of credit he had built over 15 years. Locked. He dialed his private banker, a man who had handled his wealth since his first major acquisition. The call went to voicemail. He tried the bank's priority line. A recorded message, due to legal proceedings, account services are currently unavailable. Please contact your attorney. CEO Jun Hyuk sat at the kitchen counter, his phone useless in his hand. He pulled up his wallet. 140,000 Korean wons in cash. 2 credit cards that no longer worked. A membership card to a golf club he could no longer access. He tried booking a hotel room on his phone. The reservation was processed, then cancelled. Payment method declined. He tried calling a car service. Same result. Even his automatic subscriptions, news apps, streaming services, cloud storage, had begun sending failure notifications. Every financial thread that connected him to the world had been severed. Not gradually. All at once. His laptop was still in the study. He opened it, logging into his company email. Access denied. User credentials suspended. He tried the corporate server. Session terminated. Contact IT administration. The cloud drive where he stored years of work files. Account locked pending investigation. CEO Jun Hyuk leaned back, staring at the screen. He had built an empire on infrastructure. And now, his own infrastructure had been dismantled in less than 6 hours. His phone buzzed. A news alert. CEO Jun Hyuk, CEO of, company name, is under investigation for financial misconduct. He clicked the article. The details were vague but damaging. Anonymous sources. Allegations of misuse. Pending audits. His name is trending on social media. Not for innovation. Not for success. For scandal. He scrolled through the comments. Another chaebol who thought he was above the law. How much did he steal? His wife must have known. His wife. The article mentioned her only once, in passing. Han Ji-yun, a private investor and cultural preservationist, filed for divorce early Wednesday morning. Private investor. Not the professor's daughter. Not quiet housewife. Investor. Seo Jun-hyuk closed the laptop. He needed to move. To act. To regain control. But every tool he had relied on was gone. No money. No access. No authority. He tried calling the one person he thought might still answer. His oldest friend. A man who had stood beside him at his wedding. The call connected. Jun-hyuk. The voice was cautious. I need help. A long pause. I can't. What do you mean you can't? You're all over the news. If I'm seen with you right now, it affects my firm. I have partners to answer to. I'm not asking for money. Just. I'm sorry. I really am. But I can't be associated with this. The line went dead. Seo Jun-hyuk stared at the phone. He tried 2 more calls. Both went unanswered. The men who had smiled at his dinners, laughed at his jokes, benefited from his connections. Gone. He stood, walking to the closet, pulling out a suitcase. He needed to leave. To go somewhere. Anywhere. But where? Every hotel required a card. Every friend had vanished. Every door that had opened for him automatically now required permission he didn't have. He packed a bag anyway. Clothes. Toiletries. The cash from his wallet. And as he zipped it closed, his phone buzzed one final time. A message from an unknown number. Your lease agreement requires 30 days notice for voluntary departure. As of 6 a.m. today, the property is under dispute. Do not remove assets pending legal review. Seo Jun-hyuk looked around the penthouse. The space that had reflected his success. Now it was a cage. And the woman who had built it had already walked free. Seo Jun-hyuk left the penthouse anyway. He took the suitcase, the cash, and nothing else. The building staff watched him pass through the lobby. No bows. No greetings. Just eyes that tracked him like security footage. Outside, the morning air was sharp and clean. He stood on the sidewalk, realizing he had nowhere to go. No car waiting. No driver on call. No reservation held under his name. For the first time in decades, he was alone in a city that had always moved around him. He pulled out his phone and dialed. The woman from last night. The one who had laughed at jokes he hadn't meant to make. She answered on the 3rd ring. Hello. Her voice was different now. Cautious. It's Jun-hyuk. Silence. I need a place to stay. Just for a few days while I sort things out. I saw the news. It's not what it looks like. It never is. He heard rustling on her end. Movement. Distance is being created. I can pay you, he said, hating the desperation in his voice. With what? Your cards don't work, do they? He said nothing. Look, I'm sorry. But I can't be involved in this. Whatever this is. We spent last night together. Exactly. And if anyone finds out, it makes me part of the story. I have a life. A career. I can't afford to be connected to. She stopped herself. To what? He pressed. To someone whose name is trending for fraud. The word hit harder than he expected. I never committed fraud. Maybe not. But it doesn't matter what's true. It matters what people believe. So you're just going to pretend you don't know me? I don't know you, she said quietly. That was the arrangement. The call ended. Seo Junhyuk stood there, phone still pressed to his ear, the sounds of the city swallowing the silence. He tried another number. A woman he'd seen 3 times over the past 2 months. Dinners in Gangnam. Quiet conversations. Expensive gifts. She didn't answer. He tried again. Straight to voicemail. He scrolled through his contacts, realizing how many of them were transactional. Names without substance. Connections without loyalty. People who existed because he paid them to. And now that the money had stopped, so had they. His phone buzzed. A notification. Breaking. Prosecutor's office confirms investigation into Seo Junhyuk for embezzlement and misuse of corporate funds. The article had been updated. New details. New allegations. Anonymous employees are claiming lavish spending. Unapproved bonuses. Trips disguised as business. Every mistake. Every indulgence. Every moment he had believed was protected by power. Now public. Seo Junhyuk walked. He didn't know where. Just away. Through Cheongdam-dong, past boutiques he had once walked into without checking prices, past restaurants where tables had been held for him on demand. Now, he was just another man on the street. And the city didn't care. Rain began to fall. Light at first. Then heavier. He had no umbrella. He kept walking. Past Apgujeong. Toward the river. The Han stretched wide and gray beneath the clouded sky, indifferent to the empire crumbling on its banks. Seo Junhyuk stopped on a bridge, gripping the railing, rain soaking through his expensive suit. Somewhere behind him, his penthouse stood empty. Somewhere ahead, his wife was reclaiming everything he thought he owned. And here, in between, he realized the most brutal truth of all. The life he had built had never been his. It had been rented. And the lease had just expired. By the time Seo Junhyuk returned to the building, the rain had stopped. His clothes clung to him, heavy and cold. The lobby doors opened automatically, but the security guard stepped forward. Mr. Seo. Not a greeting. A warning. There are people upstairs. Legal representatives. Police. You'll need to wait. Wait for what? That's my home. Not according to the court order. Seo Junhyuk pushed past him, toward the elevator. The guard didn't stop him. The elevator required his fingerprint. Denied. He tried the code. Access revoked. He stood there, water dripping onto marble, staring at the panel that no longer recognized him. The guard approached, holding a tablet. They're bringing your belongings down. You can collect them here. My belongings? Essential items only. Everything else is under asset review. Seo Junhyuk wanted to argue. To demand. To remind them who he was. But the answer was already clear. He was no one. 20 minutes later, the elevator opened. 2 men in suits stepped out, carrying boxes. Behind them, a woman. Han Ji-yeon. She wore a tailored coat. Hair pulled back. No makeup. No jewelry. She looked exactly as she always had. Calm. Controlled. Untouchable. She walked past him without slowing. No eye contact. No acknowledgement. No final words. Just forward motion. As if he were already erased. A lawyer stepped between them, handing Seo Junhyuk a manila envelope. Inventory of released items. Sign here. He didn't move. Mr. Seo, if you refuse, the items will be returned to storage, and you'll need to petition for access. He took the pen. Signed. The boxes were placed at his feet. Clothes. Toiletries. A laptop, wiped clean of corporate data. Nothing of value. Nothing of power. Just the fragments of a life that no longer existed. Ji-yun had reached the doors. Wait, he called. She stopped. Didn't turn. Just stopped. Why? He asked. The question hung in the air. She tilted her head slightly, as if considering whether he deserved an answer. Then she walked through the doors and into a waiting car. The door closed. The car pulled away. And Seo Junhyuk stood there, surrounded by boxes, in a lobby that had once bowed to him. The security guard approached. You'll need to leave now, sir. Sir. Not Mr. Seo. Not chairman. Sir. He picked up the boxes. Walked toward the street. Outside, the city moved. Taxis honked. Delivery drivers shouted. Office workers rushed toward subway entrances. Seoul didn't pause. It never did. Seo Junhyuk stood on the curb, rain-soaked and disposable, watching the world continue without him. And somewhere in the distance, in a boardroom he could no longer enter, decisions were being made about the company he had built. Somewhere in a legal office he couldn't afford, documents were being filed that would erase his name from assets he thought were his. Somewhere in a penthouse he could no longer access, silence had replaced his presence entirely. He set the boxes down. Pulled out his phone. 140,000 Korean wons in his wallet. No accounts. No contacts answered. No next move. Just the unanswered question that would follow him far longer than any investigation. Had she ever loved him? Or had he been nothing more than a man worth watching? An investment that had finally matured. An asset that had just been written off. The rain began again. Seo Junhyuk picked up his boxes. And walked into a city that had already forgotten his name. Was this revenge? Or was he never more than an asset waiting to be liquidated?